Hi everybody, my name's Cathi from Software Solutions, and you're watching one of a collection of videos that accompanies my Microsoft Excel Level 3 Data Manipulation course. In this particular video, I want to look at a collection of functions, a collection of what they call database functions that begin with the letter D. Now in this sheet that we've been working with to date, and please look at my earlier videos if you want to see how we created this, I want to put in some functions as a way of doing some checks and balances. For example, let's start by putting some labels in E2. Let's put in sum, under that average, under that count. And let's start with these three. Now, if I want to do a normal sum function in F2 and I want to sum up these actual values in column H, I know that the first actual value, because of the way my macro works, is always going to appear in H8. So I want to sum from H8 to the very bottom of the spreadsheet because I'm never really too sure how many rows I'm going to get. So I'll start in F2 by going equals SU. By going equals SU, I drill down to those functions beginning with SU and I can double click sum. From there I click on H8 and from there I want to go to the bottom of my sheet. So I press Control Shift down arrow once and then Control Shift down arrow a second time. And this effectively offers to sum from H8 to H1,048,576. Now I want to lock those cell references in, and that means I want to apply dollars to H8 and H1 million. So I press the function key F4, and F4 automatically applies dollars to those cell references. And then I just press enter. So that's automatically summed up the average figures from H8 to the very, very bottom. Now, because I've applied dollars to the cell references, if I press escape, I can just fill that formula down. I can then double click this instance of the formula, double click sum, and type AV, and then double click average. And I've changed that to the average function. I can then double click this formula, double click sum, and type COU, and double click count, and replace sum with count. And so now it is summing, averaging, and counting the actual values for those records from Auckland, Hamilton, Wellington, or Christchurch. So that's handy. And so if I was to change Auckland, say, to Taupua, let me spell that correctly, the data doesn't change. The data will not change and therefore is incorrect because that was for Auckland, Hamilton, Wellington, and Christchurch until I click the button. Once I click the button, then this will be deleted, recreated, and the values in column H will change, which will cause these formulas to update. So if I click here to filter the regions, it causes these to update. And these two here, I might actually show those as dollars. So I'll just turn those to dollars. Okay, so these functions are getting their results from column H. Now I need a checks and balances situation. In G2, I want to use a DSUM. In G3, a DAVERAGE. And in G4, a DCOUNT. Starting with DSUM equals DS is enough for me to see DSUM, and I can double click it. Now, all three functions, in fact, dmax and dmin and dstandard deviation and dproduct, all of these database functions require just three pieces of information, three arguments. And you can see it here in the tooltip. They want to know where's the database, comma, what's the column or the field that you want to sum or average or count, comma, and where's the criteria that defines which ones you want to sum, you want to count, you want to average. Well, our database, if we press the function key F3, we named that target list. So we double click that, comma. The column that we want to sum is actual. And if we press F3, we just happen to name it actual in an earlier video, comma. Our criteria, if we press F3, is called crit1. That's the name of this criteria. So we double click crit1. And those are the three pieces of information it needs. In order to do a DSUM, you do not have to extract the records to sum them up. You just tell it to go and look at that database, sum up that column, which is a field, but only where the records match that criteria. So when I press enter, I get the same answer as I did using the sum function. And I'll show the difference shortly. Let's fill this down. Let's double click this one, change it to DAVERAGE. Change this one to DCOUNT. Select these two, Control-Shift $, we'll format them to dollars. Okay, so these perfectly balance, but they get their results in two completely different ways. Let me show you. If I change Taupō back to Auckland, then this group, these three, will update as soon as I press enter because they're not reliant on column H. So if I change Taupō to Auckland and press enter, straight away, that is the sum, that is the average, that is the count in the list called target list of the actual values where the region is Auckland, Hamilton, Wellington or Christchurch. But these are incorrect because they remember Taupō. We haven't clicked the button. We haven't updated this list here. These actual values haven't been updated, so these results are wrong. So to get these up to date, we've got to click the button, which causes the macro to run, which causes it to delete this range, recreate this range, update the figures in H, and then we get the correct values. So it's a checks and balances situation. And what we could do is actually incorporate some of the stuff that we learnt in level 2, which is if functions and conditional formatting. This is bothering me. I'm just going to right click it and move this over a little bit. Okay, in H, let's do an if statement in H2. And if these two don't match, then we want to say click the button. If they do match, we'll just say okay. So equals I, double click if. If this equals this, if those two equal, comma. If that's true, double quote, just show okay, double quote, comma. If that's false, double quote, click the button, exclamation mark, double quote. So our test is if F2 equals G2, that's our test. If that's true, show okay, it's text, so it has to go in double quotes. If that's false, tell them to click the button, and we press enter, and we're okay. If it says okay, I want it to show gold, so we'll go conditional formatting, highlight cell rules, text that contains. If that cell contains the text okay, then I want to see a yellow fill and yellow text. It's good as gold and okay. But now let's apply a second conditional format. Conditional formatting, highlight cell rules, text that contain. If it contains the text click, you don't have to put the whole statement, then I want it to show with a light red fill and dark red text. So we go okay. Now let's test the theory. Let's go to Auckland. Let's change Auckland to Rotorua. As soon as I press enter, what's in column G will update. And I can widen that column, which causes this to say, click the button because these two don't match, which causes the conditional formatting to show it in red. If I click the button, then it sorts this out, which updates these, which causes them to balance, which says okay. So it's a checks and balances. If someone comes along and says, look, give me Taupō, give me Rotorua, spell that correctly, give me Tauranga, give me Kawerau, immediately it says here, click the button. And I'm like, oh, I haven't clicked, these don't balance. Oh, I haven't clicked the button. So as soon as I click the button, we're all okay and we balance. I hope you've enjoyed this video. The database functions are really strong. If you are extracting data using filter for the purposes of adding them up or counting them or averaging them, you don't need to. You just need to have a criteria and a database function that looks at that criteria and either sums, averages, counts, finds the max, finds the min of those records that match that criteria in a list. I do hope you've enjoyed the video. Please like it, please subscribe it, please come back. We'll continue to work with this file and incorporate some really powerful features in Excel. See you soon. Ka kite.